of Veterans Service. This is our 4th annual time we've gotten together here, and thanks to Dave Akers for opening up the school to us. And we would really like to thank you each for being here this evening and sharing your stories with us. So without further ado, I will let you guys have the floor. Are we introducing people or self-introducing?
Go rank order.
Yeah, why not? That's what you guys do.
You start right down there if you want.
So I'll let you sort of do your thing, okay? Thank you for coming.
Oh no, we're equal.
I'll go first. The Army leads the way anyway. I wasn't sure how we were going to prepare to talk. I did write a little speech, but I'd be more than happy to do questions, answers, tell a little about myself. I'm a little modest so I like to more put it in a speech. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Vakaris for inviting me to speak to St. Mark's community, fellow veterans, on such a great holiday. It's always easy to talk about something that you're passionate about, especially when it's something that's been part of my life, pretty much my entire life. One of my favorite military quotes is, "All gave some give all." Veterans Day is a day to honor those who have served the armed forces. It's about those who served in the military to protect this great country we know. It is for those that I'm proud to call my family, the ones I've come to know and love. The men, the women, and children that set the foundation of this great country and helped me to become the soldier I am today and the man I am today. We're all observing Veterans Day today, but the time and date never to forget is the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month, the days the guns went silent. Veterans Day, originally called Armistice Day, was established November 11th, 1919, to honor those who died in the Great War, and has since changed that day to remember all those that have served. If you walk the halls of St. Mark's, you can see all the alumni that were there as we are honoring them tonight as well as us. I believe there was over 200 alumni that served in World War I alone, and many past students represented St. Mark's and served in every war and conflict since then, some making the ultimate sacrifice. I have to say I'm very impressed on how St. Mark's remembers and honors their alumni and veterans. And they would be proud to know that their sacrifices were not gone unnoticed. One of the greatest attributes about St. Mark's that I find truly amazing, and there are many, is the vast diversity of students it brings into its family. St. Mark's brings young adults together to educate, to share their knowledge and experience with the rest of the world and help make it a better place. I find similar traits that are instilled in young soldiers of the armed forces. People from all over the country, no matter their background or their upbringing, which come together and create a lifetime bond for the better good. Especially when you spend time together alone in a combat zone, whether it's a long, countless hours in a guard tower staring into the Iraqi night, or maneuvering the city streets and mountain ranges in Afghanistan. It's in those times that make unbreakable bonds. Whether it is said or not, you would die for that person sitting to the left or right of you without hesitation. And that's what makes these gentlemen the 1%. I was asked to speak about my background, where I'm from, but more importantly, why I decided to serve. I'm a Master Sergeant in the Army National Guard. I've served over 25 years, 15 of them being active. I deployed to Iraq in 2004 and in Afghanistan in 2005 and served in multiple roles along the way. So why did I join the Army? That's certainly a loaded question. There are many reasons why I joined, but writing this speech certainly brought up memories I haven't thought about in years. Was it because I grew up in the suburbs of Boston, playing war next to the church? Why did I join the military? I knew I loved to watch old war movies like Sergeant York, Kelly's Heroes, and The Dirty Dozen. Some of you may never have heard or even seen these movies. They were even made before I was born. But these films made every little boy want to be a soldier. Stories of Audie Murphy and his heroic actions, any child wanted to be him. He was a hero. He was a hero to me. I thought the reason I joined was simply because I loved my country. I grew up knowing the military. I wanted to join the military because my father, brothers, uncles, and cousins served. My family served in World War II, Korea War, the Gulf War before me, And maybe I thought it was my responsibility to follow in their footsteps. Or was it simply because Uncle Sam told me he would pay for my college, so I said okay? But that's not what I wanted to share with you. It's not why someone joins the military, because there's a million reasons why. What I wanted to share with you is why I continue to serve in the military. All right, big breath. So, selfless service is being one of them. Selfless service cannot be measured, and we all have it in us. It's a time, heartache, blood, sweat, tears we dedicate to a cause, sometimes knowing we'll never get it back, nor do we want praise for it. Being a soldier is more than just a paycheck. It's the pride we feel when we're in uniform, the patriotism, the service to our flag, knowing that I made a difference in both Iraq and Afghanistan is why I did it. There will always be dangers in the world, things I cannot change. But being a part of building schools where there was no education, building wells where there was no running water, or just help keeping the streets safe from explosions so people could have a sense of security, made it all worthwhile. The most important reason I still serve is because of the bonds that I made over the last 25 years and what I referenced earlier. Bonds are formed in friendship, whether they are your schoolmates, your neighbors, fellow colleagues, or family. I have close friends from each of these groups, some since childhood, but I can tell you that the bonds forged through my military career are the strongest of all. Being part of a military means being part of a commitment to a higher calling, a dedication to duty, loyalty to my country. My fellow soldiers at any time will fight, will bleed, and are prepared to sacrifice their life for one another. And they wouldn't hesitate. That you can never put a price tag on. Yes, I wish I could back the years I missed from being away from my wife and kids due to multiple deployments and endless training. The missed holidays, the birthdays, the simple laughter. But I wouldn't change that life choice about joining the military. Or the sacrifice I've made, and I do it all over again. Thank you.
Wow. Think we can all leave now?
Yeah, I
Thanks, Master.
think you've got it. I'm going to be completely different, but my name's Steve Weinert. I live here in Southborough, been in town about 40 plus years. I served with the United States Active Duty United States Navy, and then shifted over to the Coast Guard Reserve, and for about 12, 13 years, then shifted back to the Naval Reserve. I served on 2 ships on active duty, did a med cruise, and then I did a around the world cruise, including a stint off of some place called Vietnam. And then got out, went to the Coast Guard Reserve, stationed mainly in Boston, and last year or so was down at Canal Station Cape Cod, so I was able to also get up in the helicopters and the Falcon. So I got involved in 2 search and rescues that was successful. That was kind of cool. And then it was just something about the Coast Guard Canal Station chain of command that wasn't going well for me, so I said, I'm out of here. I went back to the Naval Reserve, never regretted it. I enjoyed every weekend that I had. There were days that you even on active duty, and these guys will attest to that too, that it ain't all fun. It's you look back at it, and it's funny, I look back and I don't remember too many bad times. I remember the good times, but I guarantee there's bad times in there. I enjoyed what I did. These are the guys that were on, I know, I haven't even talked to these 2 gentlemen, this gentleman briefly, but I know these guys have been there, done that, boots on the ground. I was on board ship off the coast of Quantry, and I felt we did nothing there. And then a few years ago, I ran into a state trooper at Logan Airport. We were doing, I was part of the color guard, Patriot Guard for honor flight, and where they send the World War II vets, the Korean vets, to Washington, D.C. for the day. and some gentleman saw my vest, and he saw my Vietnam service thing on it, and he said, "Yeah, you guys had it rough." I said, "No, sir, I did not. I sat on board a ship. You know, we had gunfire support once in a while, but I did nothing." And this little short state trooper stepped forward, and he said,
I know.
we were on the other side of that gunfire support. So if you guys hadn't been there, who knows what could have happened. And it wasn't the same unit, but it was my Navy, the Navy that was supporting those guys. So I kind of took that back and said, okay, so I guess we did do some good. I enjoyed my time in. I would have stayed in if I could. I retired after 24 years between active and reserve. Why I went in, you want the honest truth? I had 2 close high school classmates that weren't in school one day. And some of you guys, some of the guys back there have heard this already. But they weren't in school. I said, "Well, you guys, we went and joined the Navy." "Oh, cool, I want to go too." I had absolutely zero. I wasn't prepared to get up to graduate from high school. I had no clue what I was going to do the rest of my life. I was just going to graduate that school, and I'll wait to see what happens over the summer. And this is during the Vietnam era as well. And I figured I'd get drafted at some point. I had some time. But it was the best decision I ever made. I went to what they call storekeeper school in Newport, Rhode Island, which I didn't want to do. I looked at what the job was, and I was like, "Oh, give me a break. I don't want to be counting stuff and doing records and stuff like that." But that's what I do today. Some 40 plus years later, I work for Bose Corporation, and I'm in the global supply chain management group. And what am I doing? I'm doing inventory, I'm chasing supplies, I'm ordering parts for the corporation. When I was on board ship, well, for every one of these gentlemen that have boots on the ground, there's probably 10 or 15 behind them that are getting the stuff that they need. And that was my role, to make sure that they had the supplies they needed, they had the ammunition, we had fuel in the ships, we had fuel for where they needed it. I was the backside of that, and these guys were on the front lines. So I respect the living hell out of these 3 gentlemen. I'll tell you, I'm humbled to be even sitting. I don't even feel like I should be sitting here with you guys.
You should.
You guys been there, done that. I was in the background, but I'm proud of my service to the nth degree. I think I've instilled those values with my 2 daughters and now my grandkids. I've tried to take some of what I learned and I try to give back to the community. I've been the VFW commander of a small post we have in town here for like 18 and 19 years. I try to make sure that every Memorial Day and every Veterans Day we put on an observance that's appropriate to remember all those who have gone before us. It's important to know, I spoke Friday at Algonquin, and I mentioned Pearl Harbor. I mentioned a friend of mine who was one of my heroes, Bob Greening. He was 19 years old when he pulled into Pearl Harbor the day after the attack. He was 19 years old, and he told me how he still remembers the smells and everything from that place. And one of the seniors afterwards, he said, "You know, some of the kids here don't even know what Pearl Harbor is." And that was shocking. It was like, I don't understand. So I kind of using that going forward to make sure that if I have the opportunity to just share some stories, to talk a little bit, to get that out there and let people know, it's important that we don't forget. Yesterday we had our Veterans Day memorial observance rather. And there was one gentleman on the wall, Bobby Foley. Bobby was 19 years old. He was 3 weeks from coming home from Vietnam when his boat blew up and he was killed. I won't let that be forgotten. There's 2 young boys up in Southborough. They were both, one was in country 3 weeks, one was in country 6 weeks. They were lost. the guys on Bobby's boat, they were all 19 and 20 years old. And then just a few years back, we lost a kid from Southborough, Brian Arsenault, he was 24. And I just think of how much those kids could have given to this country, how much that's there. So when I see you young guys there, out there, whether you serve or not, you know, give back to the country, make it this greatest country in the world. So if you go to other places, you'll see what we have in this country means so much, and it's paid for every day by guys like this and the ladies that are out there serving in every aspect that there is today. So Veterans Day, Memorial Day are two huge events in my life. My family knows about it. They appreciate it. And I appreciate the time to just kind of throw some stuff out to you. So thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Angela. I want to thank you for following me in on this. I appreciate it. And I'm honored to be here with St. Mark's, to be able to share some of my stories, tell you a little bit about myself. I'll try and follow after the Master Sergeant over there. Yeah. Actually, from Marine and Army perspective, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guards. If you ever seen the movie Band of Brothers? Any of you young guys know about the Band of Brothers? Well, I can tell you, I'm going to touch on the camaraderie part of it right off the bat. You hit it perfect, and it doesn't matter what uniform you wear, because when push comes to shove, and you're on the ground, you're in behind support, you're in the air in support, you live and die for the guy to the left, the right, the front, and the back of you. That guy, that guy, that guy, be the guy there and the guy here. Doesn't matter what we wear. We're a brotherhood. And they're the best friends, the best brothers, and the best family when push comes to shove that you'll ever meet. You hit it right on the head. Doesn't matter. My name is Master Sergeant Mark Saborin. I have been in the United States Marine Corps for 24 years, currently still serving. I joined the Marine Corps in 1989. Why did I join the Marine Corps? I grew up in Rosendale, Massachusetts. Started working when I was 14, busted my butt. Worked for everything I owned. Went to college, paid for it in cash, because I busted my butt and worked on it on my own. Decided I didn't like college, dropped out because in my yearbook in high school it said I wanted to join the Army. My parents didn't want me to. So you joined the Marines. It's a good story. So halfway through college I said, no, I've had enough, and I dropped out. And I went down to the recruit station in Boston and went to the Army office, and nobody was home. So I'm standing there, and the Marine comes walking in, he says, can I help you? And I said, well, yeah, I wanted to talk to an Army recruiter. Oh, they're at lunch right now. Anything I can help you with? I'm like, I guess, I don't know. You heard of the Marines? And I'm like, no. My dad was in the Army, my uncle was in the Army, 2 cousins in the Army. My grandfather fought in World War I and World War II in the Spanish-American War. He was 98 when he died. So I wanted to follow in some great footsteps. The man said, let me show you a video. And that was all it took. So I joined the Marine Corps, and 2 weeks later I was gone. Went down to Paris Island. I joined the reserves figuring I would go back to college. And I decided I liked the Marine Corps too much. So I checked into my unit down in Cape Cod, Otis Air Force Base in March of 1990. And then 6 months later, we got called up and I went to Desert Storm. I found myself in the middle of Kuwait, liberate Kuwait, at 20 years of age. So that was the first experience I had in combat where I made my first Band of Brothers, who I still talk to very much a ton of them today. And it's awesome when you get the text messages from them and they tell you that you're our hero. I got a group text of about 20 of them. We go, you can ask my wife, she'll tell you, my phone rings till about midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. Right? I did about 8 years, and that was my first stint. I got out, and then I went back in 2001, and they decided to have fun and bomb the towers, which I really don't call fun, but it was the rest of my life, because not only that, I was newly married, brand new baby, and then 2003, we got mobilized, and the hardest part of anything for anybody in the service on deployments is probably harder on the families is when you leave. My second daughter was born, and I missed her whole first year. And I went to Okinawa, Japan, came home, was home for a year. My unit got mobilized again in 05-06, and I went to Iraq and spent 7 months in the Second Battle of Fallujah, where I was a turret gunner. And a more wild experience than it was in Desert Storm, but I'm going to touch on something for you. And I'm going to do that because you need to understand the importance of the guy behind you. So I'll share a little bit of this with you right now. I was a turret gunner in a lead vehicle for my XL. We were out 6 to 7 days a week. And one night he said, we're going out at night and we're going to provide security in the center of town. The worst part about being in a turret is your head has to be on a swivel 24 hours a day. So not only are you looking in front of you, behind you, left of you, right of you, you're looking up, down, and everywhere. So we went out, did our job, provided security. It was a 15-vehicle convoy. And when the mission was over, the sun finally came up. I'd already been up for a full day before this. And we started heading back in. And the convoy got stopped. Nobody knew why. About 15, 20 minutes later, we start rolling up to the center of Henry. And Henry is a 2-lane road, an island, and a 2-lane road. And we start crossing. And there's 3 enemy laying on the ground. And there's a QRF, it's all cordoned off. And we keep rolling. We get back to the fob, and my XO comes up to me and he says, you know what happened? I said, I think we got lucky. Basically, the 3 bad guys were in the middle of setting an IED in a hole in the ground. And in any convoy, it's never the first vehicle or the last vehicle that gets hit, it's the ones in the middle. Guess which vehicles I was in? The ones in the middle. And my good friend, Matthew Chase, scout sniper, and his team was sitting in a building and took those 3 guys out right before we rolled through. So, I thank you, because every service member's job is very important. So, that's just one of many experiences that I could say I'll share, that you can understand, and you can understand. From there, finished my tour in Iraq, came home, and then in 2011 and 12, we got mobilized again, and I spent 7 months in Afghanistan, and then came home, and then in 2015 and 16, I told my wife I need to go away again. And I ended up going to the Republic of Georgia for an advisory role to train the Georgians how to fight in Afghanistan, which is a little more relaxing. After 24 years of being in the service, I don't do it for the money. I don't do it for medals. I don't do it for ribbons or accolades. I do it because I love my country. I love the people of my country. I love protecting. I love serving. I love the camaraderie. I love making friends in the Marine Corps, in the Army, the Air Force. They're brothers for life. By day, I'm a union carpenter. I build buildings like this. This is my life. know. I make brothers there too. And our tribes.
We're in the same industry.
So, you know, I mean, I would never trade one thing. I had the support of my family, which I'm thankful for. They put up with it for, well, you've got over almost 20 years worth. I don't know, I can't change a thing. Like, I can sit here for hours and tell you stories. And I'm thankful every day that I'm home alive and that I can share these stories and sit with my brothers, share them at Veterans Day and Memorial Day and Marine Corps birthday balls, and just an everyday phone call. I get them all the time at night. You know, you never forget them. So, happy Veterans Day, gentlemen. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your support, because it is much appreciated.
So, my name is Lap Yan. I wasn't born in Massachusetts. I was born in Hong Kong. I immigrated to the United States in 1965 when I was 3.5 years old. I am the grandson of an illegal immigrant who, because of the 1965 Immigration Reform Act, became legal and was able to come here. So, when all this rhetoric about immigration and everything, please remember that an illegal immigrant has a grandson who served 23 years in the Marine Corps. Who has a bachelor's, who has his master's, and is working on his PhD. All right, so that's the product of an illegal immigrant, and I'm very passionate about that. So I don't know what, I hate to get political, that's why I want to make that statement right now. The only other thing I want to add, Mark, is that there's another date that we should inform everybody here. November 10th is a Marine Corps birthday. 243 years. Born, the Marine Corps is born in a bar. Which is very appropriate, I think, right? So, to all the Marines out there, happy 243rd.
Hurrah.
Hurrah. I joined the Marine Corps in 1981. So I'm a little bit older than most of these gentlemen here. I got out of boot camp. I was stationed in Okinawa. And some of you may remember there was a little thing happened in Lebanon. 239 Marines got killed in the Marine barracks. I was the unit that replaced them. That was my first combat tour, although technically it wasn't a combat tour. 6 months in Lebanon before, and Lebanon is beautiful now. Now it's gorgeous. Back then it was a hellhole. Different rules of engagement back then. You couldn't return fire unless you had regimental command. You got shot on, you wait 5 minutes before you could shoot back. Wasn't really an ideal way to fight a war. Remember, we were still learning how to fight. We hadn't been in combat in probably over 10 years. We were still learning how to fight. So that was my introduction to the Marine Corps and war and everything. Did my active duty, got out in 1986, went to college. We didn't have a generous GI Bill, basically paid for it, worked my ass off, just like Mark, doing all sorts of crazy jobs, bartending, restaurant work, whatever you could get just to pay for college. Got my bachelor's, and then I needed beer money. That's really what I did. So I joined reserves. Okay, so I joined reserves. It was $243 for a weekend drill as a sergeant. Big money as a college student, man. I'm telling you that right now. I could buy beers to a lot of college kids. It was great. 91 happens. Desert Storm happened. I was a staff sergeant by then. I was leading a platoon of 81mm mortars group, which I don't know if you guys know what a mortar is. Those you see in the movies, they drop them and they fire out. Between the base plate, the tube, and the 3 rounds each guy carries, you're adding about an extra 21 pounds of pack of gear to your load. And we humped back then. Now everyone rides around Humvee. We carried on our back, we marched in the desert. That's why a lot of old veterans stoop and have broken knees and broken backs and everything because they carried all that stuff. I was responsible for 83 Marines there. The proudest moment of my life is I marched 83 Marines back to New York. You know, that is the proudest moment. Besides having my kids get married, of course. But that is one of the greatest accomplishments. I mean, I've done a lot of good things in the civilian world, but I think that's the highlight of my professional life, really. Yeah. Took 83 Marines out. Took 83 Marines in, and 3 out. So after that, after there's a storm, United States was the greatest power in the world. You know, we're the only superpower left. You know, we're going to have a period of prosperity, peace, and everything. That's why I just got married to my wife. She's back there. And everyone talks about how sacrifice, she's the living embodiment of sacrifice. I got my master's, quit the reserves for a while because I had to get my master's. So we were at a crossroads. Like I finished my master's and I had about 14 years in the military. 20 years of retirement, and I gave benefits. I remember this distinctly with my wife. She's going like, well, you only got 6 more years. It's a period of peace coming. You know, like there's nothing going to be going on, right? You know, so why don't you just do your 2 weeks, have your fun, you know, your 1 weekend drill. It's not that much. You do a couple more years and you get retirement benefits, right? 1 week, 9/11 happens. All that talk of peace and goodwill, the United States being no superpower, it's gone. I was called up February 2003. Our youngest son was 5 or 6 months. She keeps saying I forget. You think he was about 5 months old. I didn't see him for another 8 months. Missed his first birthday, missed a lot of things. That's what we did. I could have gotten out on I had some things wrong with my eyes. And my best friend, who was a Marine, became a doctor, became a Navy doctor, actually disqualified me from active duty service. Believe that or not, right? Wow. But somehow, some way, I got some waivers that said, okay, I'm going, I can't leave my Marines. I'm not going to leave my Marines. So I got a waiver, and I went to Iraq, Kuwait, and was there for 8 months. So when you talk about sacrifice and service, I can't say I sacrifice more. I think the family sacrifice more, if not I mean, they sacrifice more. So one of the problems is in our society is that we don't know much about the military. We don't read about it in newspapers. How many people have heard of people dying in Iraq and Afghanistan? There are people dying in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's easy to say, okay, we don't really care because we don't hear about the news. But people are serving. There's 5,000 troops. Right now, there's 15,000 troops at the border of Mexico. 10,000 more than Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah, is that right? I don't know. I'm not a politician. But there's troops at the border who's missing Thanksgiving, probably going to miss the holidays in Mexico, and there's troops over in Iraq who are facing imminent fire and danger all the time. So I think that says much about the sacrifice you can. So I thank you from the grandson of a illegal immigrant. I thank this country for the life it's given me. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
We're going to open up to question and answers. Fire away. You got questions? I bet they have.
Ask them why they joined the Army so they got their schooling paid for them. I don't know about that one.
I'll tell you why we enjoyed the Army, because when I was in Desert Storm, we were sitting in Tent City. The Army moved out. Marine Corps eats MREs. We don't get good food. We don't get the Air Force chow, the Coast Guard chow. We don't get any of that. What the Army do, they make so much money, they left a big pit in the ground full of all the food you could eat. Dip, chew, water, candy, tray rat. We ended up with it. We were like, what? Thank you.
The Marine Corps is notorious for getting the Army leftovers.
We do. We get a lot of Army leftovers. Secondhand.
Yeah. And we'd gladly take it.
Yes.
Something else I mentioned, I don't know if anybody was uptown here yesterday, but when I was preparing my remarks for yesterday, because it's the 100th anniversary of World War I, you mentioned briefly, but my understanding there was over 500 graduates from Bay School and St. Mark's that served in World War I. You guys have ever heard of, you must know of a gentleman, is it McMurtry?
McCurdy, I think.
McCurdy?
Yeah.
You gentlemen aware who he is? Do a look-see up on him. I was amazed when I found, it was just a little, there's a book that a pastor in Southborough produced many years back, Fences of Stone, and there was a mother-in-law who's now passed, had left a little index card in the page 279, about Southborough's contributions to World War I. And in there, it mentioned one of my former neighbors, Joe Blake, who was a pilot with Eddie Rickenbacker. I mean, Eddie Rickenbacker was like the top dog in World War I, and just when aviation was just starting. But it went on to mention that I believe, don't hold me to the numbers, I believe there was 17 Fay alumni, there may have been 10 Fay alumni and 17 St. Mark's alumni that were killed in Europe during World War I. And this guy, McCurdy, I messed the name up again. You ever hear of the Croix de Guerre? The Medal of Honor? The Croix de Guerre is the French Medal of Honor. This gentleman was awarded both of those for his actions in World War I. I never knew that, and I've lived in this town for 40 some odd years. So maybe a little bit of a late night, try to break the regular studies. Go pop in their contributions for St. Mark's for World War I. And I'm sure, I did look at World War II, I'm sure they're there, as well as Vietnam. I know you've got some casualties from Vietnam too. But the sacrifices in what they gave to this country is, I was quite impressed. There was only a short bit in that book, but like, wow, never knew that. They say learn something every day, so I guess I learned something yesterday.
I don't know, Dave, I don't know how long you've been here, but I have an associate, my friend of mine, Peter Pollack, real estate developer. His son went to St. Mark's, he graduated class of '99. He's now a Marine major. He went to Iraq in 2008 as a Marine captain. So not too far from you guys. Yeah. Far enough to, you probably don't know who he is, but you know, class of '99, Mark Pollack.
So I'm curious, sometimes you hear about people shipping things to the troops, Girl Scout cookies, newspapers, books, I guess neck wraps for cooling in the desert. So, I mean, do you think the troops like those? I mean, sometimes you're doing it and you really don't know because you don't know anybody in the military, so you just sort of join in and you ship it. What was the best stuff you got, and does that stuff make a difference when they get it?
I'll tell you, the best thing I got were letters from my kid's school. People don't send mail anymore, so reading a letter from kids, and I can remember calling back and doing like a conference call with them, you know, on Veterans Day, stuff like that. Those are the things that I enjoyed. Yeah, it's great to get stuff in the mail and stuff, but I'll be honest, people are more than generous. There's too much stuff being sent over, stuff that goes to waste. But I enjoyed letters. I still have the letters today.
Don't send chocolates in the middle of summer, I kind of melt.
There was a lady in town, Lisa Brascio, that for, I think it was 8 years, ran the troop drives. And I think the total number it was like 250,000 pounds worth of stuff that she sent over to the troops. And one year, I had just been within a day or two, I watched an episode of MASH. And Charles Emerson Winchester, you know how stuffy he is. And they wanted them to write letters to kids, back in the States. I don't want to do this. And then he opens a letter, and what did he find in the letter? Was a leaf. A simple leaf that had changed color, and it reminded him of home. So I brought that to Lisa, and I said, you know something? I just watched this. She said, that's a great. So she had the Girl Scouts out there with Ziploc bags, putting these leaves in the bags, and they went in the boxes that got shipped over. So Lisa would get letters and notes back, and pictures back. And here comes this picture several months later, and here's a guy in some hooch somewhere in the desert, and in the background was all these leaves clipped on a string behind him, reminding him of home. It was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Little things.
Little things, yeah.
And the packages help. Like my son, they do. Like, so with everything in time, right? Things progress. So when you went, you know, snail mail, right?
Oh, yeah, well,
Snail mail.
no,
You know,
I had email,
Desert
but
Storm.
not that old.
We had, I mean, the mail took 3 weeks to a month. So like you could write a letter home, you wouldn't get anything back for 3 weeks or a month. Especially if you needed something. Like, Mom, I need more socks, I need more underwear, I need, like, you know, the way things are now to where it was then, I wore the same clothes for 3 to 4 weeks at a time. Like, you were in the middle of nowhere. You know, you got a box with goodies in it, it was awesome. But I'll tell you what, I threw my hooch mate out of the hooch because he got a box of candy and put it in the hooch, and I told him not to. Because we lived in holes in the ground back then. I lived in a 3-foot hole in the ground with a tent over it. So these days, yeah, the scarves help. You know, extra toothbrushes can help.
Butt wipes.
Baby wipes, you know,
Wipes.
it's the little things that you can't go get at a store. Now they have stores on the basis for us, which makes it easier. But the non-essential stuff, like you said, the letters, you know, maybe a care package with a card in it, you know, it means more, and the service members will write back to those kids right away. It gets back right away. My wife actually, you're gonna love this one. From a Marine, right? I'm over in Iraq, and of course we're there during the hot months. She said, what do you need? I said, I'd give anything to dive in the pool right now. This one here sends me a 12-foot round inflatable pool.
Filter and everything.
So, yeah, so, I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere, so we, when we were in Fallujah, we lived in Uday's palace. So Hussein had 2 brothers, right? So Uday was one of the ones, he had a 5-mile palace. So when we first took Fallujah over, the Marines took over that palace. And they had, the Republican Guard had buildings there, so we lived in the Republican Guard buildings. And she sends me this pool. So I set the pool up between the buildings and put some camera netting over it. And all the Marines made fun of me the day I got it, but boy, when that thing was full, it was like full every day. It's like literally sitting in a hot tub. So, you know, there's things you can't replace. There's things you miss. Like we had a 4th of July, and we decided to have a block party. So can't drink, can't have alcohol, can't have anything, right? They sold old jewels on the base. So we bought a ton of old jewels. We bought all the chem lights we could in the store. We went to Supply and raided all the chem lights. Burgers, dogs. I had horseshoe pits sent over. I had horseshoes and pins sent over. We had a horseshoe tournament. We had a full block party for like 12 hours, easily, throwing chem lights in the air for fireworks.
At least no flares.
Yeah. You know.
It's the little things, like you said, the little things.
Little things.
So one of the things you guys realize is that, you know, this is like really a harsh environment. It's not, but you know what? Military guys, we just make the best of it. And we have fun. You know, it's like, you'll remember that, you know. You may not remember the July 4th party that you had with your drunken aunt running around screaming and stuff, but you'll remember that. And, you know, it's like in the middle of nowhere, you know, guys can like put out a little boombox and play music and break up your MREs and you make some goulash stew and all of a sudden, you know, you're having a good time. mountains of Afghanistan. It's like freaking 20-degree temperature, and you build a fire. Someone puts his phone out and starts playing some music, and it's a good time.
Did any of you ever get hurt or really sick while you were deployed?
I'd have to say I was lucky.
I can say I was lucky. I got hurt, actually, kind of weirdly. One thing in the reserve, we have many talents in reserve units. So when you get to a base, you want to make it your own. I decided to build an 18-foot desk for my Halcon, for my guys to work out of, and I actually tore a ligament in my wrist and didn't know it. So when I got diagnosed, they told me I sprained it. And in the last 4 years, I've had 3 surgeries because I got misdiagnosed, and I have my wrist permanently fused in February. So, is that a major injury in combat? No. Does it affect me for the rest of my life? Yes. Fortunate, very much so.
Did you get really sick while you were there? Sick?
Sick? Who got sick?
Just asking, did you get really sick?
Some Marines get sick.
Sick bacon bad does.
This isn't a pick on the master sergeant.
You know something that you're not telling us
Yeah, no. When we first got to Kuwait before we went over, you have your period where you sit for like a week or so for your flight. Well, I broke out in a fever, and I don't know what it was, but I ended up in the hospital, and my unit left without me. And one of the Marines actually called his mom, I think. One of my Marines called his mom to tell her that he was safe, and said he didn't know where I was. So his mom called her and told her, "Is Mark okay?" She's like, "I haven't heard from him yet." And she's like, "Well, Paul already made it there. Is Mark there yet?" Like,
Her words were, I heard Mark didn't make it. Were her words.
I'll give you a valuable lesson, you young men and women. Unless you have facts, don't tell a story. Get you in a lot of trouble.
He was missing for 2 days.
I was missing for 2 days. My unit actually didn't know where I was.
The FRG is the beautiful thing and the worst thing in the
Yes.
world.
Yes. Absolutely.
What's FRG? These guys.
Family readiness group. It's just communication, the way we make it back home, and I can see the issue right.
The irony was, I was head of
She was the
family
throw.
readiness.
So it made it even worse, because she was sitting at Devon's, and next thing you know, the whole battalion's on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's Sergeant Saborin? No idea.
But he was packed in ice, he was so sick.
It was also to follow, same thing happened. The sand is so soft in Iraq and Afghanistan, and your load's like 100 pounds of gear on you. I probably sprained my ankle 20 times, and you just tighten up your boot and keep going. And I fused my right ankle. My ankle's fused. Can't go further than half an inch.
Any questions from the students?
I have a question, kind of, I just don't know the difference, like the difference between the Army and the Marines, or like the Coast Guard versus the Navy. I'm not sure.
Go ahead. Putting you out in front, Skipper.
Coast Guard's not allowed to go out over 6 feet. No, I'm just kidding.
Because they can't swim.
They can't swim.
He's only 5'8".
Yeah, no, I've got so much respect for the Coasties because of what, especially nowadays, what they do. But the Coasties are not actually an armed force. Theoretically, they're not an armed force. The Navy is the armed force. They've got the ships, the guns, the torpedoes, all that other neat stuff. Where the Coast Guard is more for homeland security. Now that it's evolved that way, and they do a lot of the SAR cases, search and rescue and stuff like that. One of my best moments in the Coast Guard, I got a chance to fly in the Falcon, and I was told that I was on reserve for the week, 2 weeks, and they said, hey, the Falcon's going down to Bermuda, you want to go? I said, oh, yeah. So I told the wife, I said, I may not be back tonight, because they always seem to have a mechanical problem when they get to Bermuda. They have to stay over for the night. So we lift off, and as soon as we lifted off, the captain come on, and he says, sorry guys, we're not going to Bermuda, we're heading out over the islands, Boston Harbor. We have a sailboat that's missing. So we went on station. Now I'm a reserve. Nobody in the crew knows me. I'm just this guy sitting in the back that wants to get a free ride and get off for work for the day. And they mentioned there was a sailboat, and we got on station. We went on station 5 minutes, and I'm looking out to the right side. I see starboard side, and I see something. And I said, Captain, I think I got something over here, the starboard side, about 3 to 5 miles. You sure? Again, he doesn't know who I am. I'm almost positive, sir. All right. So he banks the jet over, and there's a sailboat with a red sail, which is really difficult to see in the ocean state, with the sea state that they had. They had lost its rudder and its power, so it was just the sail, and they were trying to keep some sort of headway. And it was a husband, wife, 2 kids, and a dog. And it was like 10-foot seas, and this thing is just pounding big time. And we got above them, and they couldn't hear us, but we could hear them. And I just remember hearing the husband come on the radio and say, I don't know if you guys can hear us, but boy, is it great to see you up there. So we had boats from 2 points coming out to rescue, to attach them and bring them in. So for me, that was like, wow, I helped out and did something good for a change, instead of sitting in the supply room figuring out, how many of this we sold and how many of this we need to buy and stuff like that. That's the Coast Guard. They do it every single day. And you put them in those birds and those choppers, and they go out there off 200, 300 miles off the coast. They got a fishing boat that's swinging back and forth with all kinds of booms and tackling gear, and they got to lift off some guy that's, had a heart attack or something. And that guy gets back to shore, they get him the ambulance, the guy's saved. That's the Coasties do. So we, just like the inter-service rivalries, we'll bust each other here. I'll guarantee, like you said, if we go someplace and we need each other's back, it's there. I try to make it a point, anytime I see anybody with a military hat, it doesn't matter what branch, I'll go up there and just shake their hand, especially the old timers. You get these World War II career guys that were losing every day. I try to make it a point to go up to those guys and say, thank you for your service, thank you for what you did. No, you didn't, no, you did it, especially the World War II guys. We're down to like 700,000, 750,000 of those guys that are remaining. And those guys saved the world, no matter. Nobody can tell me any different.
I wouldn't be able to.
Nobody can have that. They were your age, sneaking aboard, sneaking into the Marine Corps. I mean, there's dozens of stories of kids that were underage that weren't supposed to be where they were supposed to be.
16, 17.
Yep. Yeah.
I consider myself a combat veteran, been gone twice. They were war veterans.
Yeah.
Between World War I, II, and Vietnam,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
Want to get into what the difference between Army and Marine Corps is? Well, here's a good story. And I'm going to be so pro-Marine now. So, after 9/11, the president goes to the Department of Defense and goes to the Army and says, how long before you get boots on the ground in Afghanistan? I heard the story was like 6 months. So he goes to the Marine Corps and he goes, how long will it take? 3 days. Only because the Marine Corps has rotating units on floats in a ship. And they had a detachment of Marines, about 2,000 Marines on med float, which was in the area of Afghanistan. All that dude was basically turn the ship around and head in there. A good friend of mine, Staff Sergeant Luis De Jesus, who is a state trooper, was on that ship that got turned around. You know Luis?
Oh, that name rings a bell.
Yeah. Jesus, he was the armorer over at Worcester for a long time.
That name rings a bell.
Yeah, but he was on that ship, and he got turned around, and he spent basically 7 months in a hellhole in Afghanistan. Then he pulled him out, and he was really pissed off because he didn't want to leave his Marines. And they pulled him off for a specific reason. Any of you guys remember who Johnny Walker was, the American Taliban? You guys remember that? Well, this was an American. He went over to Afghanistan, joined the Taliban, and was fighting against U.S. forces. So they captured him, and my buddy Luis had the pleasure of interrogating him. To this day, he still can't tell me what happened. But anyway, to the point is, the Marines are expeditionary. We have units floating around the world, ready at a moment's whim. Army takes a little more, and different mission.
We're more along sustaining where you guys are. So they'll go in, and then they'll leave, and then we'll sustain it for a while.
Can we get them there?
Yeah, you're a Uber driver.
Yeah, we're the Uber guys. He's the Uber guy with these guys.
Well, we're all gonna phase out with the Air Force anyway.
The Marine Corps is first to go usually. And that all depends on how you look at it too. And not to discredit the Army or anybody else. So there's actually different facets of each military branch. So you got the Expeditionary Force. So the active duty, they have what they set up as they call MUs, and they take 2 active duty battalions and they send them out on the ships. So they float. They're within days of being able to get to the fight. Marine Corps also has recon. These guys are like when you hear, SEAL Team 6, that's the Navy, right? Delta Force, that's the Army, okay? You have, I'm a grunt, I'm an infantryman. You're in an infantry battalion?
Let me walk.
You see, so.
First one was a tanker.
A tanker, okay. So the Army does the same thing the Marine Corps actually does. But like you said, fundamentally what they do is they send the Marine Corps in most of the time first. But then the Army also has the Green Berets. So what they actually do is it's to divide and conquer. Is they take the special groups, they put them in there also. So they actually come in with us most of the time. A lot of times they'd be on our flank. Kuwait, they were on our flank. And I'll tell you what, in the Battle of Kafji, if they weren't on our flank, we would have been done. And I was at the Battle of Kafji. So honestly, haven't been to a 4th of July since then. So a lot of people take the inner rival in the military and be like, man, you guys really hate each other, and we really don't. We all have separate missions. The ultimate mission of the Marine Corps is to go in, do the job, and everybody says, well, the Army goes in and cleans it up. Well, they really don't, because there's multiple times when we're on the radio in an Army unit, there's 2 our left and our right, because they're coming up the other side of the end zone. We're all going for the same thing. So not to discredit the Army ever to what you think, who does what job. Like when it comes down to the fight, we all do the same job. But like you said, they sustain. Our job and our mission is to go in, divide, and conquer, and get out. Because the Marine Corps, there's only 190-some-odd thousand of us. The Army probably has 300,000-400,000. So they have the manpower to sustain. The Navy has all the power to get us there, the Air Force, Coast Guard, whatever. But the Marine Corps is actually one of the smallest branches. And that's why they say we're swift, silent, we're in and we're out. But ultimately, we actually fundamentally do the same thing. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
And Dan, you know the difference between active duty and reserve?
Yeah.
Okay.
So both of you talked a little bit about what you thought your favorite, or what you thought influential movie or TV series was in your life.
Influential, I really have a hard time hearing, so don't mind me.
An influential or powerful movie or TV series about war, but do any of you guys have something that you feel accurately portrays what you experienced, or one that you thought really made you proud?
A few actually.
There's a few, but don't watch Hurt Locker. That is so
No,
fake.
That and John had both gone.
You know what I
Gone.
like? You guys, do you ever watch Operation Kill? HBO.
I never saw that.
It follows a Marine Recon unit going up to the Baghdad. It actually, listen to this. It was a book written by a Rolling Stone author, embedded in a recon unit. Get that mix, Rolling Stone with recon. So, if you get a chance, it's like 12-part series on HBO. I don't know if any of you guys have HBO Go or not. You can probably get on it. Operation Kill. And read the book first. It's hilarious, first of all. But it gets into like the Marine jargon, it gets into like all other stuff. Be prepared for a little curse words here and there.
You ever seen A Few Good Men? Watch A Few Good Men if you want to know, kind of in a way, fundamentally what the Marine Corps is about, based on. Okay? Honor, courage, code, commitment. Right? That's a good movie to watch if you want to learn about what Marines stand for. For me, the movie Platoon. You ever see the movie? Okay? There's a lot of scenes in that movie that bring me back to real life. If you watch the movie Platoon, there's a particular scene where this is about Vietnam. Okay? And the boys are out there being punished. And what are they being punished? What's their punishment? You have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay? But I can tell you this. You guys, I'll put it this way to be politically proper. You have a porcelain toilet to sit on, right? We didn't. And I didn't in Desert Storm either. Okay? We went to the bathroom, and it was in a can underneath a piece of plywood.
You
Whoever was,
didn't have the 50 millimeter kit?
no, we just
Oh,
had
you didn't have the 50.
No, I have stirred the pot. Okay?
What, whoever the lowest ranking is?
I was a Lance Corporal. Yeah. So, you know, you want to see what it's like, and then you can get an idea of what we go through in the field, like how you live, your environment, you know, the fact that you have a shower and you have a sink and you can brush your teeth, and we're out in the middle of nowhere, and we have baby wipes and no comforts at home. I'm trying to
You ever
think.
see Band of Brothers?
Band of Brothers
The whole
is awesome.
series?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's.
I'd say Tom Hanks does a great reenactment of Saving Private Ryan. A lot of, they try to bring home what it was really like, although, unless you're in a certain series with friends, etc., we make our own experience. No one will ever know. Can't put that on TV.
The first scenes of Ryan, and I've read about it, heard about it. There's a lot of guys that could not watch that because it was the only thing that didn't make it real was that they weren't there because it was as close to realistic as you could get. Yeah, and that's a tough. If you've seen it, that's a tough few minutes of watching that.
It's a great series.
It's an outstanding.
Heartbreak Ridge is another good one.
What's the other one?
Not too many really good Navy ones, I guess. I have to admit. There's not too many good Navy ones. But that's okay. The back.
So for kids our age, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq have been going on pretty much our whole lives, right? And as 9/11 grows more distant, I think it's hard for us to understand, those wars. So how do you think people in our generation should view those wars? What's our role?
Good question.
Very good question.
So, if I can real quick, and this is just my take and perspective on it. History-wise, if you look at, and I'm going to go back further than that, what happened when Vietnam happened. If you're really into history and you read about it, and how that war started, played out, and ended, and what the service members went through when they came back, I think is a big reason why we have stayed in where we are in Iraq and Afghanistan today. Because I don't think anybody wanted to say, it's just like that. Now, if you watch news and certain newses and whatever, and political, and I don't try not to get too political, but it's all in how it's portrayed, okay? We view it as what we do. We go over there and we do our job. And it's portrayed here as we just go over there and fight. We kill a bad guy, a couple people, whatever, right? And he actually said it in his message, if you listen to it in the beginning. You know, we go over there and not only fight. When I was in Fallujah, we set up electricity, we set up water, we got schools going, we got mills going, we created jobs. American public doesn't see that back here. You see, we fight, and we kill, and people get hurt, and service members die, and it's a bad thing. And we fight for the guys to the left and our right. So we go over there to do the job that's asked of us, but we see the good that we implement. And you guys don't know how to take that being here. You're just like, man, this thing's been dragging on forever. How are we supposed to take that? It's like an opinion, right? You take it however you want, but if you actually dig down into the history of it and research and see what's actually being done in those countries, you may see what you're looking for is we actually are doing good over there. You know, I tell everybody, I told a radio station this one day, it made me so mad I ended up calling in because they tried to portray Iraq as Vietnam back when it first started. And the DJ couldn't even tell me how many people we lost in Vietnam, 68,000. And I showed him up on the radio. We had only lost maybe like 600 or 700 at the time. Okay? There's a big difference, right? So you got to know the facts when you're talking about it. You got to know the facts before you can form your opinions on how you're going to view it. But if we pulled out of there, it would be just like that. And I tell everybody the same thing, and I told this guy the same thing. And this is how we view it. I view it most especially is I would rather be 6,000 miles away fighting the enemy where I can concentrate on my job and fight with my brothers than be right here in my own backyard when I have to concentrate on my job and can't protect my own family. So I will take being over there any day over fighting in my own backyard. Does that make sense?
Just to follow up, look at what happened after World War II. It took many, many decades of building up the Japanese and German economy before it got to where it's at right now. So, you know, are we doing good over there? Yes. Are we doing enough over there? That's debatable. You know, again, do you want your taxes raised so that we can send more stuff over there, to send more troops over there so we can build their infrastructure to root out their corruption? Most people say no. That's a damn shame. Because we're not willing to, as a country, to put enough resources to win the political side. We can win the military side. We'll kick their asses, we'll destroy the enemy. We just don't have enough political will to win the damn thing right now. That's my feeling. Yes, sir.
That was an excellent question, because Vietnam, I was in the Army from 69 to 72, the peak of the Vietnam War, and the country was aflame with demonstrations and protests and hate directed towards the military. I can remember being called a Nazi when I was wearing my uniform. And part of the problem is it's not the military's fault that we went over there. Our politicians sent us. So as students, you all are next in line to go to war for this country. And it's your responsibility to ask, are the goals clear and worthwhile and achievable in this war? And you ask that question of your politicians. What the politicians didn't do during Vietnam is they didn't say you should be blaming us because we're the ones who made the decisions to send us. Instead, they let the crowds burn us in effigy, call us Nazis. Morale in the Army was at its lowest level. There were high levels of desertion. There was great drug addiction problems, insubordination, officers insubordinate. This is my experience. I mean, I actually ran a rehabilitation program to deal with those issues with recalcitrant soldiers, drug addiction problem soldiers. So it's incumbent on each of you to put your, to talk to your politicians, to ask them to continually justify why we're out there. We all support that mission because there is evil on this planet, and if we don't fight it over there, they're going to be at our doorstep. So keep asking those questions and demand that our goals are achievable, worthwhile, and clear. And the Army and all the branches of service will respond and do the great things that we do.
We're going to hold it up there because I know you have study hall. And you have to do. But before, I want to say thank you, gentlemen, for your service. Thank you for your time here. Thank you for the stories. It was great tonight. I'm just going to ask, is there people that if you could just stay there or step in the front there so we can just form a line so the kids can shake your hands and say thank you in person. Okay? So thank you very much.